Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sabor Astrology with T and Shay. Bring in your cups of coffee, your tea, and tune in to today's conversation. T, if you have anything that you want to bring in.
Yeah, I want to say that this is wonderful, that welcome to Sabor Astrology. And we're here to talk about astrology in ways that you can understand, that we can understand. We're all learning day by day, and we're teaching. So we want this to be an interactive process. So feel free to reach out, ask questions, say what you need to say, and we'll make it a group venture.
Yes, absolutely. And to talk about how Sabor Astrology came about, I mean, it's a big journey. It's a long, beautiful one that T and I, Shay, have come together to put together and birth for you all to find healing, to find wellness as well. And our story stems from a long time ago, I think like 10 years ago,
Yes.
2013. It was a summer day, and I believe I was in college around that time. I was almost in my third year, and I was studying sociology, human development. And that summer I had an internship with a beautiful woman. Her name is Aurora, at the Casa bookstore, which was in Harlem, East Harlem on 103rd Street. And I got the opportunity to be a school coordinator there. And I was coordinating different activities and events for schools around New York City and young and youth. And it was a beautiful summer. It was a beautiful time there. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about my culture because this bookstore was all about me. It represented who I was and spoke to who I was, the inner child and my roots, especially because the bookstore was dedicated to Black and Caribbean and local New York City writers. So it was the place that brought me a lot of joy. I believe they closed down many years ago, but when they were open, they had such an amazing vibe there. And I learned so much about myself. And in that process, I believe it was on a June evening, T actually had a book signing, right? Is
Yes.
that, yeah, a book signing. And I believe I was greeting in that event. There was a lot of people and I was really excited. It was like I was in the candy shop that day. And I remember the event was outside. It was like in the backyard, beautiful, very beautiful place. And then there was like a downstairs, but mainly the events were in the back. And that day, as I was greeting and learning about all these like artists and writers and all these great people with all this knowledge that were about my culture, my background, my roots. And in that, I don't remember again if I met T like face to face that day in her book signing, or if it was just like we might have said hey and then like cross paths. But this is one of the paths we crossed along the journey. It was not until 2020, October 1st, when we were randomly assigned actually to a astrology group because we were studying astrology, that T and I met again. And I had no idea until like maybe around that time when I was doing some research that I found one of your events on like their like online. Yes. Stating like La Casa Su bookstore and pictures of you, T. And I was like, whoa, so I've met T before in one way or the other, maybe energetically. And then again in October 2020. And then now 2023, we are back and we are hosting this beautiful podcast, a podcast for the soul and a podcast to bring in community as well. And I'm going to hand down the mic to T and let's see what else we have, what other stories that we can share with you all.
Yeah, that's so good to hear. You've brought me right back to La Casa Azul. And what I was thinking of was that hill, right? Walking up the hill.
Oh, yes. I
You
remember
get-
the hill.
yeah, when I got out of the train station, or it was the block right before. So yeah, the hill that brought us to, yeah, me too, the culture. I remember doing readings there, and sometimes the place would be filled and people would be spilling out into the street on a Sunday afternoon while we were, just practicing our craft as writers. That was when I was with La Pluma y la Tinta, which is
I
a
remember.
workshop, yeah, workshop group that I was with. And yeah, that night was so magnificent. And it's interesting because I started writing because I wanted to write what I knew. I wanted to write about, the Latinas and Latino people that I wasn't reading about in books. Back now we have a lot more literature, and I'm so happy about that. So many authors are coming to the forefront. But at the time, it was like, I want to write things about people I know, about neighborhoods I know. And that's when I started writing about the first book I wrote, that novel, which was that night, was Covering the Sun with My Hand, which is one of my favorite books that I've written. It's
Beautiful.
yeah, it's Julia Acevedo is
Mm,
the character. I'll never forget that. Anyway, but yeah, so it was really important. I mean, it was important, like personally for me as a writer, to come out and to meet all, people, old friends, new friends. I mean, there were other Latino poets and authors who read that night, and I got to read. A great group of people had shown up, but it was like definitely the flavor of the city. It was a summer night in East Harlem, that you could hear the train.
so beautiful.
Behind us, it was just like, it was like we were encapsulated in this other zone, this energetic zone, right? Yeah. So
It was the smallest bookstore too. Like it was elongated and
yes,
narrow, but it was like once you went in there, it was like the vibration there was just so beautiful, so welcoming. Everyone had something to share. Um, and that brought in like that flavor to La Casa Su bookstore for sure.
yeah,
For sure.
definitely. Um, Aurora was very
Yeah.
earnest and very accomplished in what she was able to bring to the community.
Mm,
And we do miss
mhm.
that, but as I say, a lot, it did like kind of open the doors for a lot more authors to come to the forefront to write our stories, and to show that we're in it, that we're not marginalized, that we're not on the outside, that that there was a place for us. And this is what we're doing here, is making a place for us with Sabor Astrology. um so yeah, so we got together again somehow randomly, which I don't think anything is random in the universes, right? The universes said, here's T and here's Shay, and we're going to put them in the same group together.
Exactly.
We were studying with Rebecca Gordon, I'd like to mention her. And so we were learning a lot, and we were meeting weekly, and that's a grow a friendship, right?
Yeah,
I really,
absolutely.
yeah, I feel like that when we met each other initially, that it was just energetically that, we were reignited, our connection again. Maybe it's from a past life or something, I'm not sure, but maybe the more we work together, we'll find out about that. Um,
Yeah, I was thinking, what came to mind? That first time we had the group, Constellation group, I remember we were kind of going into our natal charts, like exploring our natal chart. Then, and I remember I had mentioned something about my Mercury being in Aries, and you're like, and I think it was your turn to speak, and I like cut you off, and you're like, wait, hold on.
Not
Do you
me, did I
remember
say that?
that? You were like,
No.
hold on, it's your Mercury. It's like, I was like, oh, okay. You were like, it's your Mercury and like in Aries, because it's fast. My thoughts, my reactions, the way I communicate is fast. So you were like, nope, hold on, slow it down.
My Taurus came out, right? I was
And
like,
that started
stay,
your
stay
bull.
put. My bull came out. It's interesting how, astrology is definitely the blueprint, right? Like you could look up at the sky and know exactly what's going on in the earth.
Exactly. And it manifests in different ways. Um, on us as human beings, on even the weather, on like emotions, everything. So astrology encompasses so much for us, also externally and also psychologically, in ways we can heal. And it goes very deep. It brings us into a story of how we can become more tuned to ourselves, how to be more sure of ourselves, and how to work through the challenges. And I say challenges because I have a ton of squares in my chart. So
That's good because that makes things change. That makes
yeah.
things happen. People are afraid of squares. I don't think you need to be so afraid of them as long as you learn to work with them. And
Yes.
knowing, for instance, that, I'm a Taurus doesn't mean that I will, forever be dealing with indulgences. And, it's not like I have to just deal with my fate. I can work with it.
Yes.
I can make changes. I can do things that will get me accelerated. Like this is what's so fun is that it gives you more of a freedom. I believe that when you know what your astrological pinnings are, and where you're
Right.
going and where you came from, both your lineage and your future. And
Yes.
today, like most especially today.
Absolutely. And it gives you the streamline of direction as well. Like, where can you, maybe there's a craft or maybe there's something that is really your flavor. I say flavor a lot, because I love flavor.
Because
Um,
you said sabor, you believe
Sabor,
in what of
right? We
sabor
have to bring in
astrology.
the flavors.
Yes.
And that direction, and we can think about the direction astrology can provide for us individually as well as collectively. It's something in the chart that you can see. It could be a challenge, or it could be a sextile, it could be a trine, or it could be an opposition. And these things are going to push you to see things differently, to work through them. Yes, we're going to jump through hurdles because that's life, or it might flow easily. But there might be something within those challenges and good moments that really we can pick out and be like, this is for me. This is for my growth. This is my authentic sauce, as I call it. And what I mean by that is being who you are, your colors, your aura. And you pick that out and you make what it is that comes through. And and in that, a lot of people ask, what is my purpose? What is my life purpose? And that is that looking, as an astrologer, I look into the charts to explore that with clients, explore that with others, or even collectively exploring that to pick out those pieces that are really meant for you to see. And it's like you're going through a field of things, you're picking out flowers and you pick out the flower you like. And that's to me how astrology represents itself. And it can be very flavorful, mixed up, yeah. And all of that, we find our true selves. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm envisioning a chart right now, and we'll show a couple of charts here. I'm envisioning it, and sometimes when things are rough, right, we think it's like that forever. Especially when things are difficult, or even when things are wonderful, we think that we would like it to last forever. But things come in seasons, right? So that we could say, hey, Uranus is in, conjunct to my natal, whatever sun sign. And it may seem like it's forever, because it's a slow moving planet, but, like what are the benefits of that? What are the things that we're supposed to look at? Folks
Mm,
get, frightened when Saturn is coming to them. They're like, oh no, this thing's going to be hard, and it's like, Saturn wants the best for you. Saturn wants you to sit
mm,
down, take a moment. Let's do it the right
yes.
way. Let's do it the best way for you. 'Cause, the
Mm,
planets just want the best for us, I believe,
mhm.
and these are things that, again, like I tend to talk a lot about what we've signed up for in this lifetime, that we knew what we were signing up for,
Mm,
and that, the planets can help us to
yes.
achieve that, to fulfill our contracts, to let things go that no longer serve us. Which you'll talk about at the end a little bit about, let's say, Jupiter and Pluto, and then what that's going to look like. It's like above and below. It's like wham, right? Like things are going to be moving. So
yeah, and these are the moments that, again, is those cycles like you mentioned, T, moving us through, and like learning. That's what life is a big cycle, and we're moving through them, through these cosmic and planetary energies that are a blueprint of who we are, and they also manifest differently within all of us and collectively as well. Beautiful. All right, I'm ready to see a chart. T, are you ready?
yes, and we are going. Let's see what's in the transits for now as we speak. I mean, it's just
that seventh house.
That seventh house is screaming beautifully. And
Yes.
more like singing.
Absolutely. And look at Venus, beautiful. She's in Cancer and right in the ninth house. And we have our Mars like right at this midheaven. Wow, that's powerful. Collectively, we're really pushing through to learn, to explore things in a very systematic way. But we also have here with Pluto at the bottom in the IC in opposition to Mars. It's like Pluto is beaming on light, if you can imagine that, onto Mars. So it's really pushing Mars to live out, to really explore. Is it going to do what it's meant to do? Is it going to put the action into action, or is it just going to stay stuck? And this is the ninth house. So we're talking about exploration, learning, big picture things. So Mars is in this place of like emotional intensity as well, being that's in Cancer. So there's a lot there. It's very powerful, strong, and energy with those two placements in our chart.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, T. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm seeing in the ninth house, which is really about publishing, broadcasting, right? I mean, and this is just so perfect that we're starting today.
Yes.
That there's such a balance with the Venus and the Mars. Like, what can be more beautiful than that? To have the balance of the two planets in there together.
Absolutely.
And and as you say, Pluto's there, and Pluto goes deep, and Pluto is going deep in Aquarius, right? In different ways. Pluto is is saying do things differently. Do the regular things that you do, right, in your neighborhood, and in the third house, your communication with your friends, your family. Do it a little differently, do it in an ingenious new way. It makes me think of I'm studied, I have a PhD in nursing, in research development, and one of the women who was a researcher, she would say to us, if you have a problem, write it on a piece of paper, put it into your pocket, and go where you're going in a totally new way, so that you can look at your neighborhood in a different sort of a way. And that by the time you get back home, you would have solved your problem, whatever that is, because it's looking at it differently. So I remember someone saying that they were having problems with their children. Could be problem with sibling in the third house, right? And as they were walking along, they saw a Fisher-Price toy. They saw something else, and then they realized, my son is growing up. It sounds like it was me, but it wasn't me. It was somebody else, right? My son is growing up. I'm having such a hard time, right? I don't know what to do with him anymore. But yeah, so that, it gave them like, this child needs to grow up, right? Needs to, no longer the little Fisher-Price toy child, right? Where you can always watch them, always, take care of them, like you take care of your children, but in a different way as they, as they get older. So, those are some things, and that's really what I'm seeing here in the third
Mm,
house, which is just
absolutely.
fascinating how the planets will talk to you if you listen to them.
Yeah.
If you
And
listen to them.
absolutely. And with that Pluto being in retrograde, so it's kind of, if we think about it, it's kind of back in Capricorn, that energy as well. So it's all about, and when there's a planet in retrograde, it's all about inner reflection. Like exactly the same example T mentioned. It's about redoing in a different way. So when a planet like Pluto right now being in retrograde, what is it that we need to transform or change or reform within the self? And we can rethink it. I mean, we have there right on top in opposition Mars. So even though it's an emotional in an emotional sign, it's still going to carry that power of the Martian energy. This is beautiful. And to really carry that solution or that rethinking, reform out and act upon it. Um, and I think that's beautiful. Even though it could be a difficult here an aspect, but if you think about it internally and externally, it comes together like a puzzle piece. Yeah.
So shall we talk a little bit more about the seventh house, about relationships?
Absolutely. Yes. And then with Jupiter that just entered the sign of Taurus today, um, it's in a beautiful sign. So a lot of abundance. But next week I will be talking about the T square that's being made between Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars. But for today, we'll talk about the seventh house, and then we'll get deeper next week.
Yeah, so it's saying, it's all about relationships, right? The seventh house. It's all about relationships and communication, right? You have Mercury in there, communication, which is sitting right next to the moon.
Absolutely.
And Taurus is one of comfort, one of, domestic bliss, one of wanting to, to have security, financial security. Taurus is ruled by Venus, right? This beautiful, beautiful planet. And so it's almost as though she's blessing us. It's almost as though she's blessing us right here with, the sun, Uranus. Uranus can bring some amazingly big changes, disruptive changes. But with her, blessing on that, I think it's going to be a little bit softer. All going with, Jupiter, as you're saying, with this, this expansion, with this hugeness that's coming to us, all toward the North Node, all, sitting with the North Node. It's like, where are we going with our relationships? Think about that. Today's a good day actually to meditate on that. Like what, where am I going with my relationships? Maybe just a simple question before you go to bed tonight. It doesn't have to be a huge candle and lights glittering kind of thing. It can be something, whatever, however you create your meditation is your meditation, but it also can be just a few minutes to quietly to sit there and to say, where am I going? Who am I going with? Yeah? And it's, right across the South Node, in Scorpio, which is like, maybe I want to do it by myself, alone in the dark, where I'm used to it, right? But and then you have Libra, that is the rising sign here in this, and that's again about relationships. So they're all just working together. So what could be conflictual doesn't have to be conflictual.
Yeah, it's working through those cycles that we've been talking about, T. It's working through those cycles, and Venus really as a beneficial planet. She's soft, definitely brings in a ground that's softer. She brings in the calm earth to us, with the seventh house. A lot of focus on relationships, marriage, and our business partnerships. And maybe there's something that's going to waken us up collectively that's going to ask us about those love relationships we've had, the business relationships, or it might awaken us to new ones as we're moving and approaching the new moon on Friday, May 19th. So to keep that in mind, as well as meditating, what do you want to implement more in this new moon in terms of your relationships and what's being awakened within yourself? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Sabor Astrology with T and Shay. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you on the next one.